Hey people of the VC, it's Andy, cloudy, milder, something a little bit different today. I want to say thanks to everybody for helping me reach the 500 subs mark. It's a little bit above that at the moment now. I've kind of waited to thank everybody because it took a couple of attempts to get over, and I'd lose a couple of subs and go back up again. So it looks like it's fairly stable now, unless this video does something to disrupt that. So yeah, thanks everybody for watching and subscribing and just supporting my channel through the last 2-3 years I've been on here. Thoroughly enjoyed it, and will continue to make videos as long as I do. I thought I would throw a couple of things into this video. So there's going to be a room tour that's going to come up. I'm going to do a bit of rambling first. The last video I did on my sort of irrational issue with vinyl reissues got a really good response, so I thought I would share some of the other irrational behaviour that I demonstrate with my record collection. So one thing I wanted to show, first, I actually want to clarify one of the points I made in that last video. Because it got some good comments, but I don't know if I really made a very good job of explaining myself. So when I was talking about my 80s record collection, it is records from the 80s. So this is an 80s record. It's got 80s music on it, obviously, but this is a 2017. This is a 2017 record that has 80s music on it. So when I get a little bit anal about 80s records, it's because I want the 80s record with the 80s music on it, not a modern record with 80s music on. Still confused? I'm struggling to explain it any better. Actually, no, while I've got these two out, I'll show you something else that's maybe a little bit different. So I have two different ways of keeping my records sleeved and looked after. So all the 80s stuff is in these plastic envelopes, and all of the newer stuff is in these do you love that sound? These Blakey sleeves. Again, there's no particularly rational explanation from that. I started off buying these sleeves in bulk and putting them on the every record that I had. Then I wanted to try out these sticky sleeves, and because I keep my 80s records and my other records separate from each other, as you will see in the video coming up, I kind of thought, well, why don't I put all the new records in these Blakey sleeves and just keep all the 80s records in these? And I've just carried on with it, to be honest with you, for no reason whatsoever, other than I'm just stuck in my ways. What can I say? The other thing as well is, you know, I don't do that thing where people keep the record in the back. I have to admit, I don't fully understand it. So I always keep my records. I replace the inner sleeves. I don't. In fact, I used to buy these paper ones, polylined paper ones, but now I just buy the polylined sleeves like this. So whenever I buy a record and I clean it, I replace the inner sleeve. Well, I actually keep the original inner sleeve and keep it all together, but I keep the record inside the sleeve rather than doing this kind of thing, which I see a lot of people doing. I don't really understand why people do this. Okay, I've heard a couple of things. One, I've heard that it prevents ring wear, but I honestly don't believe that. When you've got records on a shelf, if you've got the record there or you've got it inside, you've still got the same amount of cardboard and record pressing against each other. I think that if you don't pack your records too tightly, you're not going to get ring wear. Records that I've had for 30 years, that when record collecting wasn't a thing, it was just how you bought your music, I didn't particularly go out of my way to put any. I didn't have any polyline sleeves. I didn't have any necessarily polylined inners. It was all, and I've not got any ring wear at all on my original record collection, and I think it's because I only had a small collection and it just wasn't tightly packed at all, so I don't do that. The other thing I've heard as well is it makes it quicker to get it out, but come on, these are records. This is not a quick listening hobby. If you're in such a hurry that you can't take the record out and get the record out the sleeve to put it on, then you probably haven't really got enough time to listen to the record anyway. Well, I'm not knocking anyone that does it. I mean, that's just literally that's how I roll. And again, with these ones, I keep the records inside the sleeve. The sleeve, while I want to keep it pristine, ultimately it's there to protect the record. So if I accidentally drop something on here, which what I won't, at least the sleeve will protect it, and it won't just be a thin bit of plastic protecting it. So yeah, that's another one of my foibles when it comes to storing my records. Right, I'm going to skip to the footage for the room tour now. Bit of background, it's not really a room tour, it's I'm just doing a flyby of my collection. This is a small room. I mentioned the size of it in the video. It's not all given up to music. My wife has a lot of stuff in here as well. There's a lot of books in here. She has a desk over in that corner. This camera's very much staged, so you don't see all the crap that we've got in this room. So I'll just really show you how I kind of set things up and show you what my equipment is, and introduce you to the plant over there. So I'll pop back after, and hope you enjoy. Okay, room tour time. Start off with the old hi-fi setup. This is a Reloop RP1000 Mark III belt drive deck. It's I guess it's fairly basic turntable, but I've always thought it sounded pretty good. Picked it up for a great price when I started to get back into records again, so I wasn't prepared initially to spend a lot of money, but I think I made a good investment with it. It sounds pretty good. This is hooked up to a Pioneer A10 amp, which suits me, has enough inputs to satisfy my needs. My room is fairly small. It's only about sort of 3.5 meters by 3.5 meters, of which I only use this wall and the one over there to store any of my music stuff. Really, my wife sort of shares the rest of the space and has a bit of an office space, which I won't cover in this video. Yeah, so I've bit of nostalgia. I dug out my old mini disc player. This is about 20 years old now. It's a MDS JE510, and tape deck, which I also bought a couple of years ago. This one, so this is just a single cassette deck. Yamaha KX380. Again, does the job. Nothing too fancy. I had a grand idea that I was going to make a load of mixtapes. So that's when I picked it up off eBay, and since then I've made about 2 in 2 years. So not prolific. I don't have any cassette collection of note to worry about having a decent CD player. It's all about CD player. So today, my trusty old Sony CDP XE510. It died today. I was just switched it on, and the display was flickering, and then there was a kind of a horrible burning smell coming out of it. So it used to sit between these two. Usually on my if you watch my videos, you observe it. This is normally 3 high in terms of separate. So I've whipped it out quickly, and I had a look at it. There's nothing that I think that I could fix myself, so I'm going to have to go and look for a new CD player. Unfortunately, but limbs are breaks. The speakers, again, I've had these for about 20 years as well. These are Gale 2i, I believe. They sound pretty good for me. I say I'm no audiophile. I don't need top of the range equipment, but what I've got is a setup that
works for me and works pretty well and sounds good within the space I'm in. As I say, obviously we're just within a 3.5 by 3.5 meter square room. Nothing is going to sound absolutely fantastic from an audiophile perspective. So that's Dave. Dave helps a little bit with static in the air around the record player. He's called Dave after my best mate Dave, who I don't see often enough, and when I look at the plant, it reminds me of my mate Dave, not because he's called Dave, not because Dave looks like the plant. I need to move on. The speaker stands are kind of custom built. So originally I had some proper speaker stands that stood sort of this high up to about the height of one of these bins, but I needed more storage space, so I got these half-size cubes, or cuboids if we're going to get technical, and the top one contains my Manic Street Preachers collection up to here, sort of first half, and then the second half is my wedding present record collection, and the one at the bottom contains it's all Ramones, so all the studio albums and live albums, bootlegs, and some CJ Ramone solo albums at the end. This bag here contains the different types of plastic record covers that I use, so I'll talk about that a little bit later. The 2x2 Kallax, so this is all 80s rock and metal, not exclusively, so this is all original. So when I've talked before about not having 80s reissues, if I had any, they wouldn't go in here, because it would contaminate the original, the OG-ness of this these cubes. So yeah, so this is all A to Z. It's not A to Z. There you go, that's good stuff. It's not sorted by any particular subgenres, so you'll get thrash next to proper metal and AOR type stuff if I've got any of that. So we've got sort of A through to B here, and the C's through to H, and then I obviously through to, what have we got down here? M. I think the M's might continue this side. Yep, so Metallica. This goes through to, I think Savatage is the last one here. And then the 80s collection continues up on this bookshelf, where we go Scorpions through to V, Virgin Steel. A little break for some magazines, I'll come back to those. So then we have Warlock going through to Zodiac Mind Warp, which I think is the last in the collection, and then this chunk here is all 80s compilations. Little break we had in the middle, some magazines, some Iron Maiden fan club stuff. I joined the fan club so I could get some priority tickets, and I definitely didn't want to miss them coming up in Glasgow, because it was going to be sold out. This is my Iron Fist magazine collection, and I've started picking up some rock candy as well. Bluetooth speaker. I use my phone occasionally. This is my cassette collection, I guess. Pretty small, as I don't really play them. Once this gets filled up with records, I'm going to have to consider replacing the bookshelf with a proper one of those larger Kallax shelves. The rest of it is just kind of books and things which aren't music related. My desk, there we go. So yeah, so this is where I generally record the videos. The webcam is on top of this tin here. A few kind of family pictures around there. Motorhead beer tin. It's getting a bit dark here, sorry. Trooper beer tin, and this box of tapes here is I've been thinking what to do with them for a while, and I have really no sentimental connection with them. So I think, because I don't have the space and I'm not really that fussed about them, I'll probably do a video actually, show you what I've got in there, and look to move those on. I like gaming, so what I've got on here is my old PS2 and my son's old Xbox 360. So we'll jump on that occasionally. Under the desk is a number of boxes of CDs. This is just rock and metal CDs, and that's my custom built PC in the bottom, and then I have these two record boxes here. The first one being this is all 80s original metal stuff, rock and metal stuff that I've yet to show on the channel. There's stuff been in there for over a year. It's certainly not that I'm buying that much stuff, but it's stuff I just haven't got around to doing videos for. The box at the bottom is all my 12-inch singles, all rock and metal stuff. The shelves above the computer desk, there's two of them. So this section all along here is all rock and metal up to here. So this is everything basically rock and metal wise that isn't an OG. So I've got so there's a complete mixture here. So it starts off with some AC/DC reissues. There's some newer Anthrax stuff, Black Sabbath reissues. So basically anything that's not 80s originals is here. So which means that so for instance, there's a small Judas Priest section here which contains Turbo, Painkiller and Firepower. The other Judas Priest is kind of kept down here, the 80s original stuff, but they're not too far from each other, so it's not too confusing for me to actually split up the collection. But you know, as I say, I just don't mix the reissues with the OGs for no really good reason at all whatsoever. This section here is all sort of stoner and doom stuff. On the shelf above, some real miscellaneous stuff. This used to be bigger, but they took out the Manic Street Preachers and the Wedding Present stuff and put that in its own box. So there's a couple of soundtrack things in here. There's some Madness, some Pixies, House Martins, REM, Adam and the Ants, cool stuff, and my Iron Maiden box set, a couple of Saxon box sets. These two are both empty. I'll show you where I keep the records for those. This box set will be empty. I find it's difficult to pull out individual records from a box set, so I tend to keep them on the shelf. It's just I'm not ready to get those out and have a listen to them yet until I've had to work my way through this Saxon box set, Nuclear Bass box set, some rock and metal reference books. The blue box and the box above are full of mini discs. They're all sort of dubbed MIDI discs rather than originals, and all this stuff across here is some kind of junk albums, the ones that Greg the Egg sends me. I haven't done anything with yet. And then most of these, I think there's a couple of duplicates of things put in here which I've considered maybe getting rid of, but they've not really made it past this shelf yet. There's the inner sleeves I use for my records, and other ones here are newer rock and metal albums that I've picked up. So it's kind of my inbox for new stuff and my inbox for 80s stuff. Yeah, it sounded very complicated now I'm explaining it, but the system seems to work in my head. So yeah, I didn't show these two bins down here. So this first one is all the Iron Maiden reissues. Again, I've kind of got the 80s albums down there because it's a bit tight when I add them in here. I would quite like to pick up the reissues of the 80s originals that I've already got, and that will kind of fill this one nicely. and the bin at the bottom is Saxon, where I have mixed the 80s here with the 90s and 2000s from the Eagle and Dragons box set. It's easier for me just to pull these out and play them than it is to get the box set down and squeeze them out of the box and risk damaging them that way. Now, I think I've kind of shown everything. I haven't shown what's on top, have I? So, this is the big stack of cassettes I bought to do Still Sealed. Got some wireless headphones that I don't use a lot, to be honest with you, and that's the bass unit for it. I've got a 3-way phono switch here, so the output from my amp is here, and I can direct that. So instead of using the tape loop, this one here is the MIDI disc player, this is the tape deck, and this is the computer cable, so I can just direct the output without having to fiddle with cables at the back of the amp to, depending on where I want to record to. This is a Bluetooth receiver, so I can either connect my stuff that maybe I'm playing on YouTube, got a bit more oomph than the computer speakers. I can connect my computer to this, and again that goes to the amp as a selector, so I can just play computer through my speakers. Some cleaning stuff, a couple of pin badges. This is my Welsh Bitter beer mat that I've had forever. Yeah, I never forget your Welsh. That's about it, really. That's I'm surprised I managed to get 15 minutes out of such a small amount of space. Again, another box of CDs up there. Those ones need to go away at the top, and the box here is a lot of that is the new wave of British heavy metal CDs of things I've picked up that I've not yet shown, but will be in future videos. And that's it. Let's take you back to the desk.
Okay, so that was a quick flyby through my my listening room and my setup. A couple of things I thought I'd show you is very early on I got into the habit of just keeping notes of which records I was playing. So I've got a kind of a record of my records for the last I think the first entry was 25th of May 2015 when I was listening to Armoured Saint. I'm not religious about this. There'll be times when I realise that I've listened to a record or two and I've not actually written in it and maybe have forgotten for a few days, but I've worked my way through one whole book. Took me about 2.5 years to do it, and I'm on my my second book, which I've realised I've not actually updated for a day or so. So if I can think about what I played, I'll go back and do that. But there we go. So another one of my little foibles. One day I'll probably show you how I go about cataloguing my records again, because again I'm a little bit anal about that, and I have a couple of different systems on the go at the same time. So maybe we'll have a third instalment of irrational behaviours of a record collection. Hope you enjoy the room tour. Hope you don't mind me doing something a little bit different. Let me know again about any of your irrational habits that you may have, and if you have any questions about the room tour stuff, ask me in the comments below. I realise that I skipped over a section where I have tour programs and 10-inch records as well, so there may have been other things that I skipped over quickly that you may want to know a little bit more about. But thanks for watching, and I will be back with some more of this nonsense soon. Cheers.